Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. Today I'm taking a more in-depth look and comparison between War Thunder Naval and World of Warships. In the past, I've done two of these videos. One when I had very little experience with War Thunder Naval. I literally just bought the Prince Eugen, played a bunch of high-tier matches. I did the thing that I tell y'all not to do. And then I had a second one where I came back a year after that initial comparison video where I had a little bit more experience with War Thunder Naval. I was still just in the Prince Eugen though, hadn't really grinded up too much in the Naval Tech Tree. However, today I'm revisiting the subject 2 years after that second video, having much more actual experience in the mode. And I've grinded out the Scharnhorst, and I've been playing War Thunder Naval pretty much as my second game for the past 6 or 7 months. Those of you that have been watching the Sunday videos, the War Thunder videos, should have been able to tell that. So I have a much better understanding of the mode now, plus the mode has evolved quite a bit since that last comparison video. So let's go ahead and dive on into it. I've broken it up into several categories, comparing the mechanics of said category between World Warships and War Thunder Naval, and those should be on the timeline down below if you would like to check those out, or check one or two particular categories out and not have to waste the rest of your time. You can check that out on the timeline. If you do find yourself enjoying this video though, if you wouldn't mind dropping a like or leaving a comment before you click off this video, it does help out on the YouTube side of things. So, before we go any further, let's talk about my relationship with War Thunder, well, with Gaijin, and with Wargaming. Well, as you guys that have been watching this channel for some time know, I am not a CC of Wargaming. I'm not part of the CC program. I'm not supported by them in any way, shape, or form. I am primarily a World of Warships channel. That is by far my most played game in the past 5, 6, 7 years, however long I've been playing the game and doing YouTube. But I get nothing from them. So, there is no relationship there. Gaijin, same thing. I have no relation with Gaijin. If they do have a CC program, which I think they do, I'm not part of it. I really haven't even spoken with anyone with Gaijin. I've talked to some people from Wargaming once or twice, but that's about it. So, again, pretty much same thing here. The only difference being I've featured a lot more World Warships on this channel than I have War Thunder, although I do have a fair amount of War Thunder videos from over the years, but no support from them either way, so level playing field in those regards. So let's go ahead and get into our first category, which is aiming. And this is what you'll be doing the most of when playing World Warships or War Thunder Naval. And we'll start with World Warships. And with the World Warships side of things, I'm assuming that most of you guys watching, of course, are regular viewers of the channel. So I'll be explaining the World Warships terms more simply, as again, most of you should probably be aware of how they work. But if you're here and you're maybe from the War Thunder side of things, I will be explaining them enough to where you get a really solid idea of how they work. So World Warships aiming is very simple. You aim at a ship, and the game either automatically locks you onto that ship, or you can tap X to lock onto that target, or to switch targets. And the game takes into account your ship's speed, the enemy's ship's speed, and their distance. And it's only on you to make adjustments based upon the enemy ship's heading and movement. So if they're turning out, you would aim a little bit above them, turning in, aim a little bit inwards, and you'd have to predict, hey, are they going to turn, are they going to slow down, and you have to make those adjustments. It's super simple. Anyone can pick it up and do it, and that's all there is to it in aiming in World of Warships. Very simple. Now we get to War Thunder Naval. So when you lock on to a target in War Thunder Naval, that's just telling essentially your rangefinder to look at that target. And you'll see there's a little progress bar at the bottom. And when that progress bar reaches full capacity, it gives you an updated heading indicator and an updated range. And then you have to take that information and make your shot. Plus, you have to manually adjust your distance. And this is a gripe that I have with War Thunder, not only War Thunder Naval, but other aspects of War Thunder. I'll talk more about it in my opinion section. But that distance adjuster isn't necessarily going to be bound when you first start playing. So you might be like me and wondering why I'm having to aim at the water a couple kilometers in front of the target rather than, just having to look at the target and adjust from there. That is kind of frustrating. But anyway, once you take all that into account, you then can fire. And you can fire a ranging shot where you just fire one gun from one turret to give you an idea of where your shell is going to go, but I don't really bother with this. I just kind of go full send, and it works out either way. Now, keep in mind that all this information, the enemy ship's speed, your heading, the enemy ship's heading, is being taken into account by you, the player, and the information is just being presented to you by what you see on your HUD. That means all that information has to be, well, of course, will change if you adjust your speed or heading, or the enemy target adjusts their speed or their heading. So you then have to redo all of that once you or your target changes speed or direction. It's a lot. It sounds like a lot, but once you get into it, it kind of clicks. It really does. It's very intimidating at first, but once you get it down, it's not so bad. In addition to your main guns, you can also manually fire your secondaries in War Thunder Naval. That is automatically done in World of Warships. You can do the same with your AA guns as well. You can manually fire them, which I find to be pretty cool. So, as far as my opinion goes on the two systems, the World of Warships system is much easier, it's much more casual, makes it a lot easier for someone to just sit down, pick up the game, and go. War Thunder is leaning more into the simulator side here, of course. It's very intimidating at first, and plus two, you have to, and we'll talk more about this in the damage section, you have to, of course, not only just keep pounding the middle section of the ship, you have to adjust your lead a little bit ahead of the ship if you want to damage other parts of the ship. You adjust a little bit behind to damage the stern section of the ship, or whatever part of the ship you want to hit. So, World Warships, much more casual, much simpler for anyone to sit down and pick up and just go. War Thunder Naval, it scratches that simulator itch a lot more than World Warships does. That's my opinion on the two there. Now, moving into our second category, we have the damage. So, World Warships, HP. The ship models in World Warships are broken up into compartments that are assigned a certain amount of HP. And the ship models are actually really well detailed. They just don't show you this in game. You can see your general armor layout in game, but you have to go to a third-party website to really see how the ship models are broken down. There's a lot more behind-the-scenes stuff in World of Warships than in War Thunder. War Thunder kind of just throws everything in your face, and it can be very, very overwhelming for someone that's just getting into the game. But a lot of that same stuff is in World of Warships. It's just behind the scenes. Now, the way this works, if a certain part of the ship receives an overwhelming amount of damage, of course, the HP is going to be gone, and you'll see your HP bar located in the bottom left-hand corner go down, of course. Once that portion receives that overwhelming amount of damage, then a saturation mechanic kicks in, and that portion of the ship will take less damage, but it will still slowly chew away at your overall ship HP. So let's say, for example, you eat a bunch of torpedoes on your bow. The first torpedo might do 15,000. Second one might also do 15,000, but highly likely after that second torpedo, the third one may only do 5,000. Fourth one may only do 2,000, and that applies, of course, to shells as well. Now, all ships except submarines and destroyers also have a citadel that represents the most important, well-protected parts of the ship. These are key areas like the CIC, key machinery spaces, so forth and so on. And when this is damaged, that deals a lot of damage to your ship's overall HP because it's simulating those key areas getting knocked out. Obviously, if a battleship shell does get through to your ship's CIC and kills all the crew there, that's a big issue for that ship. That's going to hinder the operation of that ship. Now, to deal with this, ships are equipped with a heal that can replenish the HP of these spaces up to a certain extent. Depending upon the type of damage, flooding and fires can be repaired to 100%. Shells and torpedoes, on the other hand, depending upon, again, what ship you have, what type of heal do they have. There's different types of heals in the game. Some may regen 30% of the Citadel damage. Most can only regen 10%. It depends on the type of heal, of course. But generally speaking, you can recover from this up to a certain extent, depending upon the nation. Now, once the ship's HP is depleted to 0, the ship is sunk. And you're done. Modules can also be knocked out. Turrets can be knocked out. Engine, rudder, torpedoes can be knocked out as well. Submarines, their sonar, their torpedo tubes, their engine, rudder, same thing there. If munitions hit the appropriate area, of course. And when you get these knocked out modules, you can use your damage con consumable to repair those instantly. Otherwise, the crew will automatically repair those modules. It may take some time. Again, depending upon your commander build and such. Now, in War Thunder Naval models are also highly detailed. And unlike War Warships, they do show you that right away. Of course, War Thunder has the X-ray view once you hit an enemy ship. And, I mean, yeah, they're nice and detailed. So, when these ships are broken up into compartments, we essentially have the same type of system. You might be saying, what? No. War Thunder does not have an HP bar. Well, War Thunder Naval does, and it's your crew. The crew in War Thunder Naval essentially replaces the HP system in War Warships. The crew are distributed throughout the ship. Now, of course, it may not be equally like War Warships, but there's crew. There's crew in the superstructure, there's crew on the deck and the AA guns, there's crew in the turrets, there's crew in the engine rooms, there's crew everywhere. And as you do damage to the enemy ship, you'll see you killed X amount of crew, you killed X amount of crew, so forth and so on per salvo. And that is one of the two main ways to sink ships. Once you deplete the crew to, I believe it's around a 9 or 10%, there's not enough crew left on board to maintain the ship, and your ship instantly floods. And you're done. The second way the ship can get sunk is, well, flooding. If flooding goes unchecked, then the ship will sink. Now, flooding can be started by shells punching holes in the hull, or by torpedo impacts, of course. Now, the way that the crew does work, it's not a system like War Warships where, your health bar does generally get whittled away at a fairly consistent rate. From my experience, crew is normally depleted very quickly to around 30 or 40%. Due to that portion of the crew being in the more well-armored portions of the ship, of course the guys on deck are going to get absolutely eviscerated by all the HE spam, and well, not just HE spam, but general spam of cruisers and such. Those guys are going to get slaughtered right away. And of course the guys in the superstructure too are going to get killed much faster than the guys sitting in the CIC in the hull of the ship, or the guys sitting in the conning tower, or the crew in the turrets as well. And then from there, that's where the real slugfest gets going on, especially on more armored ships like the Scharnhorst and other battleships and battle cruisers versus cruisers and destroyers. Damage is much more detailed overall in War Thunder as well. Individual guns and turrets can be knocked out. You can have your number 1, number 2, number 3 turret gun get knocked out, and number 1 turret or number 2 turrets. Much more detailed in those regards. The crew gets depleted, as one does in times of war. It takes them longer to complete tasks. Another nice detail there. Reloading guns, the reload time gets longer. Putting out fires, that takes longer. Stopping floodings, that takes longer. And this is all in addition to engines, rudders, and props getting knocked out like they can in War Warships. And that also brings us to the damage control system in War Thunder Naval. It's a lot more detailed. In War Warships, you can have 3 fires, 3 floodings, you pop damage con, it's done. But in War Thunder Naval, you have to balance what your crew can do. Sure, you might have a flood, you might have a couple fires on your ship. But if you send your crew to deal with both of those, there's only so many guys on the ship. So if you tell them to go fix a flooding and stop a fire, it's going to take much longer for them to do both. It'll happen simultaneously, but it'll take longer. But if you want to focus on one or the other, it'll be done in a much faster time. I would highly recommend focusing on flooding. So you send them to deal with the flooding. It takes a certain amount of time, depending upon how well your crew is trained and where your crew skills have been spent, and then they can go and deal with the fire after that. They also can use repair. In War Thunder Naval, repair fixes broken modules. Like if your turret gets knocked out or a gun in the turret gets knocked out, they can fix that. Your secondary gun gets knocked out, your propeller gets damaged, your rudder gets damaged, your engine gets damaged. They can fix that, and it will restore it back to functionality. But there's no way to replenish crew, so there's no healing, quote unquote, like what we see in World of Warships. So my opinion on this, World of Warships, again, it's much more simple, much more casual. It's very easy to pick up and go. War Thunder Naval, it's much more complex. There's a lot to it. This is one of the things that it takes players a hot minute to get used to in War Thunder Naval, or War Thunder in general, if I say so. But again, it's two different flavors, two different systems. Depending upon what you want, a more casual experience, World of Warships, a much more in-depth, leaning more towards the simulator side of things, War Thunder Naval. So when it comes to maneuverability, World of Warships, wow, everything's fast in this game. Especially once you play War Thunder Naval for a bit. So in World of Warships, the biggest, most unmaneuverable beast in the game, like the Hanover, that thing feels so much more maneuverable than like the smallest destroyer in War Thunder Naval. So World of Warships ships are very maneuverable. Movement, throttle juking, dancing around shells is a big portion of the game and how you play. You typically want to stay on the move, especially in today's World of Warships. There's not a lot of sitting there and just, going to town on the enemy team. Maybe if you're kiting, but there's a lot of movement in World of Warships. War Thunder Naval, not so much. These ships have weight. A lot of weight. The Scharnhorst, which in World of Warships is a very maneuverable ship. I even recommend to play it like a cruiser today. Always stay on the move. She has a high top speed for being a well-armored ship. In War Thunder Naval, that thing is sluggish, slow, incredibly just unwieldy in comparison to her World of Warships version. So they feel a lot more like, again, these huge hulking armored behemoths that they are. So again, World of Warships, much more casual, a lot more faster paced. It's more arcadey, of course. War Thunder Naval, again, leans much more into that simulator side of things. So when it comes to the gameplay style, overall, these three categories, I haven't really given one side an advantage over the other one, or I should say a pro over the other one, because they're completely two separate types of games. Even though they're both focusing on 20th century naval combat, artillery ships. For now, with War Thunder Naval, there's no CVs or submarines in the game yet, although it wouldn't surprise me if War Thunder gets there with the way that they're going with everything else. There are still planes, don't get me wrong, and planes can still be quite the annoyance in War Thunder Naval, even though your AA does actually do a good job of shooting them down. Okay, let's see if my AA gunners are going to be as good as the AA gunners are when I'm in a plane. Got a crit. Oh yeah, he's not getting that bomb off. There we go. Uh-oh. Ow! Ow! It's two different playstyles, and I can't really say, oh, War Thunder Naval sucks because they take the more simulator-y route, or War Warships sucks because it's an arcadey route. It depends upon what you want in the gameplay side of things. However, as we move into talking about the economy, the grind, and balancing of the games, that's a little bit more objective. So, starting out with the economy with World of Warships, they just went through, as I'm sure most of you know, a whole rework. And they're still making changes to where they are trying to standardize the economy. It seems to be on a tier-based basis rather than a per-ship basis, although, of course, like the munition for a DD costs less than the munition for a battleship, so there's still that. It's very standardized, and in World of Warships, of course, you go into the match. Your ships, doesn't matter if your ship gets damaged or if it's perfectly fine, your post-battle service rate is going to be the same. depending upon how many shells you fired, how many torpedoes you fired, that's what's really going to be driving your cost up in the battle. And still, even in the economy rework, it's still very simple to make credits. From tier 1 to tier about 6, 7-ish, it's very simple, very easy to make credits in the game. Tier 8, 9, and 10 is where it's a bit more of a challenge to make profit without things like premium time or economic boosters, which can be easily bought in the armory, or you can earn them through various in-game events. With War Thunder Naval and War Thunder in general, the economy is... Gaijin likes to use the economy to balance the game. What do I mean by that? If something's overpowered or if something is doing quite well and they want players to play less of it, rather than nerfing it, they'll make its repair costs incredibly high. Which sounds kind of okay in practice, but that guy that's been playing the game for forever, who has a bagillion silver lions, doesn't really care, so he can still take the overpowered thing into battle. So there's that. The economy in War Thunder Naval is also more unforgiving, of course, to large, heavy ships, and it's almost impossible to really make profit playing ships like the Scharnhorst, which really sucks because I grinded the game for a very long time to get the Scharnhorst, and now I can't really make silver lions in it, even using premium time, and even coming, in the Scharnhorst, I usually come in the top 3 or top 5 ships on my team, because, Scharnhorst, big guns and stuff, so there is that, and of course, sinking ships, doing damage to ships, you get awarded silver lions and research points, but again, with how high the post-battle service cost of the Scharnhorst is, I very rarely actually make any credits, and you can apply that to, again, like I said, anything in the game. That's how they like to balance the game out. So the grind now, in my opinion, there's no contest in the grind. War Warships has the far more enjoyable grind. War Thunder Naval and War Thunder in general, you are going to be here for a minute. I always find it amusing how people complain that it takes too long to grind to tier 10 in War Warships. It does not. It does not at all take long in comparison to War Thunder Naval. War Thunder in general has a very long grind, and that leads to a lot of frustration with how the game evolves, or devolves if you ask some people, because in order to get a top tier vehicle, you are going to be playing this game for months to get a top tier vehicle. With premium time, unless you just have a ton of convertible RP saved up, you're going to be here for a hot minute. And plus, convertible RP, you still have to pay to use it. It's not like free XP in War Warships where you can just use that to, skip a ship or maybe get some modules and stuff. So, on top of that, not only does it take forever to get to a top tier vehicle, when you get to a top tier vehicle, you still need to research the modules for it, or the upgrades for it. And these are things like fire prevention, or an extinguisher, parts, an engine upgrade, things that are normally just given to you in other vehicle combat games. Like War Warships, you get damage cop. You get a repair when you get the ship. Sure, you don't have the best rangefinder, or the best hull, or the best engines, but you still have the ability to put out a fire and repair your modules in War Warships. In War Thunder, no. Even on vehicles like an M1 Abrams that comes from the factory with a fire suppression system, you still have to unlock the extinguisher in War Thunder for some reason. Same thing on these ships too. So, yeah, you spend forever grinding up to your Scharnhorst, you get the Scharnhorst, you take in the battle, you get a fire starter, and you can't put it out. It's just got to burn itself out. Same thing with parts. You eat a shell, your gun gets knocked out, good luck, you ain't got the parts for that at all. And that's incredibly frustrating, in my opinion. That goes to War Warships. Same with the economy too, I forgot to mention it there. Balancing. As much as we all love to complain about balancing in both of these games, currently right now, Naval honestly feels like one of the more balanced portions of War Thunder. It could be just because I've been playing it almost exclusively for the past couple of months, but I still do hop into a ground realistic and air realistic battle every now and then. And it could also just be where I'm at in my grind right now. I'm in German 6-7 on the ground forces of Germany, which is a very painful place to be. And high-tier jets are just pain at the moment. Speaking of, grinding, I took forever to grind to the F4 because it's one of my favorite planes, and now it's been relegated to ground pounding because, well... Anyway, back to Naval. Right now, they feels okay. But this is the same company where spawn camping in ground has been a problem for forever.
What? What the fuck?
They don't seem to really be in any hurry to fix it. At the same company where, again, you grind forever to get your F4, and now a few months later it's been outclassed by MiG-29s and F-16s. That's going to take forever for you to get to it, and now you have a terrible experience because you're in an F4 fighting F-16s and MiG-29s. So again, right now it feels kind of okay in Naval, but the future is What are Warships? Again, the issues we have here are plenty. They do try to fix them. Some longer than others. Like, we look at the Thunder, for example. It took them forever to nerf that thing. Nakamov is still wildly overpowered. Submarines are a thing. Their mechanics are really frustrating and annoying to fight against. Both games have major balancing issues that, at least in World of Warships, I can say a good chunk of them have been addressed. I haven't been around in War Thunder long enough to really see how a lot of the issues or overpowered vehicles have been fixed. I do know that they kind of move them up and down in BR to kind of fix their problems rather than changing stats or characteristics about the vehicles. So just for fairness sake, I'm going to call this one a draw because I haven't been around in War Thunder actively long enough to really see what's going on there. Water Warships, I've been highly involved in it. It's been the primary content on my channel for years. So I've seen the PR disaster. I've seen the CC walkout, the Yukon debacle, all that in detail. I haven't really been that involved in War Thunder at all. So again, we're going to call that one a draw here. So my final opinion is that if you want a more casual experience, a more hey, I feel like playing some boats today, I'd go play Water Warships. If you want a more in-depth simulator-y experience, I'd go play War Thunder. War Thunder has some really cool mechanics. I really like their aiming system. Don't get me wrong, like I do enjoy Water Warships' aiming system and the casual nature of the game, but War Thunder Naval does scratch that simulator itch, and the scale is a lot bigger in War Thunder 2, so it feels like those huge naval battles that really took place, because the scale in Water Warships is shrunken by quite a bit. But in War Thunder Naval, it feels like you're sailing a big boat and you got these huge guns. It feels a little bit better than Water Warships. Not that I don't like how Water Warships feels, just when I want that more grand, large-scale experience, I go play War Thunder for a bit. That's my 2 cents on the two games. This was just a comparison between the two of them. If you guys would like to share your opinions, which I'm sure plenty of you will, do that so down below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Sunday and have a wonderful rest of your week. And do remember to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. Hope you guys have a great Sunday and a great rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.